Is it? Like people are saying audio is back, but no video is back.
No, the video is back.
The video is back. Okay.
No. Wait 1 sec, guys. I'm not sure.
Unless it comes back in 5 seconds, I might have to read a poem about CJ.
Yeah. Well, to anyone listening, I think someone reported our stream. Yeah. So there is a new video up on YouTube. I'm gonna rename it because it got the wrong name. But yeah, please read the poem.
Should I go again or?
We have a little technical break. Please stay with us.
Oh, for a muse of artillery fire that would ascend the brightest heaven of M777 invention.
To be honest, I have a really interesting question now. Like when someone reports us, right? This is okay. I mean, this is totally up to each individual person. But what have we done that we get suspended due to violation of policy? I mean,
Well,
you actually have to do something.
So the thing is that someone probably either mass reported us or yeah. So
well, let's start, Erlen, with last week we got a thing from Deutsche Welle. It was like okay. I'm going to start like with something a little bit different that's been going on. So if anyone watches, what is it, Channel 5 News with, I think, Callaghan or something is his name. He's like a big reporter in the US. He does like really interesting journalism, I find. He like goes and interviews like a lot of, someone's typing, if you guys could mute. He does a lot of like interesting stories. Like he goes to places that a lot of journalists don't, in my opinion, and interviews people. And he very recently did an interview of residents of the Las Vegas tunnels, basically homeless people in Las Vegas. And that documentary was basically copyright claimed. And like basically he used some B-roll from a news service that is local, and they copyright claimed it on YouTube and got the video taken down. And he basically pointed to a larger issue on his channel in documentary filmmaking on YouTube in general, where we see this happening a lot. And it's kind of ironic that news agencies are doing this because news agencies like absolutely rely on fair use laws to do anything. So, and without fair use laws, like we wouldn't have the news. Like they're stealing footage from literally everyone and they're doing it on the grounds of fair use. So the fact that it's news companies that are claiming these copyright strikes is pretty infuriating. And so we actually had our own run-in with one like 2 weeks ago. Deutsche Welle did a copyright claim. I don't want to mix up terminology here. They did the less severe one. They didn't immediately pull our video down or like immediately report us as criminals or something, but they basically like issued a warning to us, and we had a choice to like back down or tell them like, no, it's fair use, come at us, you have to actually claim us or we're not going to do anything. And they backed down, right? So yeah, we proudly, I should say, I sort of decided like we're not going to back down on this, we're going to keep doing it, because what we're doing is absolutely fair use. So I wrote to YouTube all that stuff, and Deutsche Welle backed down. So we're happy about that. My guess is, though, that when we played that 60-minute stuff as B-roll, they didn't like that. They didn't like it. In my opinion, we're absolutely covered by fair use when we do stuff like that. There's no audio being played. I'd say one of the main questions about fair use is like, are we providing an alternative place to watch the 60 minutes documentary for you, right? The answer is obviously no. I had my own independent report about what happened with the Insider and their investigation. And I was just using the 60 minutes as B-roll over it, right? So I think this is kind of a larger problem that YouTube is having with independent documentary filmmakers. They need to get this sorted. They need to take their fair use doctrine more seriously and stop coming down on small and even large YouTubers and allowing these big media conglomerates to use fair use when it benefits them, but when it doesn't benefit them, to suddenly claim in violation of fair use and run roughshod all over fair use when it doesn't benefit them. So yeah, I'm a little pissed, but what are you going to do? Yes. So someone asked, is it fair use if we have a monetized YouTube channel? Yes, it is. Right. I mean, think about any news agency you've ever, watched on TV, right? They have commercials, but everything they do is considered fair use, right? So as long as we are transforming the work, right, as it were, in other words, the footage is playing silently over it. I'm speaking new content, like a separate report over it. We should be covered by fair use, assuming that I'm in good faith attempting to commentate on it and educate the public about it, right? Those are kind of the three main criteria of fair use. Are we trying to educate by showing it? Are we transforming it in some meaningful way where it's not just the original work being rebroadcast? And are we providing you, the listener or the viewer, like some means to avoid going to the actual source to watch it? And I think in all three of those cases, we're on the fair side of fair use, right? So yeah, I think hopefully that explains maybe our position on like what happened or what's going on with all this. I think it's pretty clear to me from not just our experience, but the experience of, I think, Channel 5 News, as it's called. It's like a big YouTube channel with millions of subscribers. This is like a broader problem on YouTube. We're not gonna back down on it. Again, I think we're in the right, and we're gonna do our best to like continue doing what we're doing. But I think in the future, based on like this event and the previous event, we're maybe gonna try to think about like ways to approach it that will cause less problems for you guys just trying to watch us, right? Erlen, I don't know, anything you want to say about it before we move on?
No, I'm just sorry that the moment that they put us back on, I changed to a new stream. So yeah, that messed it up a little bit because I think we were basically back online when I launched a new stream. But yeah, we're back online. The audience is here, so we lost a few, but if you can again like and subscribe and kind of emphasize a little bit more on that, since we lost viewer numbers on this video, I guess we can let Germinade present his stuff again, because he basically got interrupted in the middle of his segment.
Yeah, it was very rude by you.
It wasn't you, not me. It was YouTube.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Just before you, sorry, just one thing. I just want to say, well said, Joseph. We've always gone to extraordinary lengths here at Tochnyi to generate original, authentic content, whether that's spending hours creating video, hours creating audio. These projects take days. There are other accounts out there who do use the kind of video that we show, and we have worked very hard to stick within the limits that Joseph outlined. So I just thought I'd have that. Thanks. Over to you, Morris.
Yeah, so my big question is, I mean, I presented a lot. When did the stream end? Like, what was the last you heard me saying? Because when I start over now again, it's like,
I think you need to start all over again for the YouTube
I think
audience.
it cut at the 60 minutes footage would be my guess.
Nah, sometime after that. It was in the middle of Germinade's segment.
Okay.
So even the first one, or
I think yes.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Didn't hear the start. No. Okay, yeah, let's go again. No, didn't Mr. What is it? Squiggle? No, I wasn't even at the end of the segment, so yeah. Okay, let's start with the beginning of all over again. We're starting with Wednesday and the donation by the Kirchlingern Volunteer Fire Brigade. They have donated a fully equipped firefighting vehicle to the State Emergency Service of Ukraine in the Kyiv Oblast. It was handed over by Nils Thal, who supports as a German volunteer with the Ukrainian fire brigades. So he was in Ukraine for multiple months, for example, and worked also close on the front line with different fire brigades and helping the Ukrainians out. Before that, it was transported to Ukraine in cooperation with the Water for Ukraine initiative and Mission Sirit. Even though the vehicle looks old, as it was registered in 1992, it has hardly been used over the years and has only driven around 18,000 kilometers and is in excellent condition. It will therefore provide Ukraine with many more years of good service. Coming to the video, it's the first time that I put together a small video about German military aid. So please write in the comments how do you like it, or if I can like spare the work and just do a basic image like I usually do. After 4 weeks of no update on German military aid to Ukraine, we got one on Thursday by the German government. In the last 4 weeks, Germany has delivered the following to Ukraine: 30 RQ-35 high-drone UAVs, 14 vector UAVs, 5 anti-drone sensors and jammers, 118 360 field kits, which are drone detection systems, 1 Bergepanzer II RRV, 2 bridge-laying tanks Biber, 5 Bronco ATTC RRVs, 9 Bronco ATTC command vehicles, 6 Mercedes-Benz Zetros tankers for water or fuel, 9 mine plows, 1 Pioneer Panzer 2A1 DAX AEV, 6 Vicent 1 MC mine clearing tanks, 3 border protection vehicles, about 2,000 RGW-90 Matadors, 70 GMG automatic grenade launchers, ammunition for the Leopard 2A6 main battle tanks, 4,000 shells of 155mm artillery ammunition, about 24,000 40mm ammunition for the automatic grenade launchers, 1 surveillance system for satellite communication, 330 IR cameras, 3,000 camouflage nets, 2,000 camouflage ponchos, and 2 emergency power generators. The German government also pledged another 20 Marder 1A3 IFVs, 1 Bronco ATTC command vehicle, and an undisclosed amount of Patriot missiles and 70 IR cameras. So that was the German military aid from the last 4 weeks. And already at the end of my segment, the Free State of Bavaria has donated 11 BMW or BMW motorcycles to the Kyiv Patrol Police. The motorcycles will have the Kyiv Patrol Police to respond quickly to calls and be more maneuverable and mobile. And yeah, that was my segment for this week.
Thank you, Maurice. Always good to hear about German aid to Ukraine. And so I think what we have left basically is we'll do some Q&A. So if chat has any questions, feel free to type them up in chat and we'll do our best to answer. I just think we maybe have a couple things, Erland.
Well,
I know we have. Oh, go ahead.
Before that, I thought we could go through a new kind of segment that I wanted to have every week, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
And if I can't do it, I hope someone else can do it. So we got this new fantastic,
a bold statement for a guy who's not going to be here next week. But
yeah, I'm like, oh, come on, you should handle it or someone else.
Let me see what it is.
We got this really fantastic new volunteer, which is a graphics designer, and he helped us out because I basically had this idea that we should use Andrew's data that we have access to a little bit more than we already do, and this is a very easy thing to do because of the way he set up his spreadsheets. But then we got a lot of help from our graphics designer volunteer, and he put out this fantastic slide with the losses data from Android Perpetua and GIC. So if people don't know how this is collected and how this differs from what the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense puts out, so these are verified losses, either with video or photo or satellite images. This is, let's say, 100% confirmed losses. Sometimes it's difficult to differentiate between just damaged or destroyed, and that's why Andrew has put it up anyways in different classes. And sometimes we might be wrong about what is destroyed and what's damaged, because often what is damaged will eventually end up as destroyed. Also, often what is abandoned will eventually end up as destroyed. But this is the last week of losses, and as you see, Russia's had enormous losses on armor, especially IFVs, which are absolutely insane, and also APCs, so armored personnel carriers and IFVs. They also had quite a lot of tank losses. I think there will be a lot more added probably today, because yesterday there were some videos published where Russia lost a lot of armor. But yeah, I think this is going to be an interesting kind of short segment that we can have. It will be a lot more interesting when we can compare it to the last week or the last month. So this is just going to be kind of an introduction, and I'm going to make sure that we publish these slides on our Twitter so that people can use them, but make sure that you don't take our stuff without and modifying it so that you cannot see who made it. But yeah, you can see the source in the slide, and if people want to republish that, we're totally fine with that, as long as the source is mentioned. Do you have something?
Oh, I was just going to say, also, I'm sure it'll be available on our website, Tochnyi.info. Is that right, Erlen?
Yeah, we're going to make some page with PDF download so you can get high res for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, we certainly respect fair use here at Tochnyi, and you're more than welcome, obviously attributing the source to use our work. And I just wanted to, I think, did you mention it, Erlen? Chris, our new contributor, the guy doing our graphics, I think he's in the chat. Like, shout out to him. Like, he's doing a great job. We really appreciate him coming on and doing the graphics. Yeah.
Yeah. Big shout out to our new graphics designer. So this was last week, and since this was also the end of the month, we got the whole month of March here, and Russia took enormous losses, and some of this can be accredited to the fact that they had quite a lot of pushes, offensive pushes with a lot of equipment. I think we're going to make sure that next time we have some sort of loaf and golf cart added here, because the specific table that I used for this didn't include it. I'm going to make sure that happens next time. But yeah, insane losses in March for Russia. I think Ukraine, they lost quite a lot of tanks, but I think a lot of these losses were not necessarily from March, but because Andrew bought some satellite imagery, he could identify a lot more Ukrainian losses in March. Yeah. If there are any questions from chat or the audience about the data, then we can have a little chat about it.
Yeah, always. It's definitely really interesting to see the data displayed visually. I think it really helps illustrate it a little better, because Andrew puts out like a daily list of the losses, and it's all very well organized and color coded. But I don't know. There's something about seeing it visually this way that really I don't know, hits different, I guess.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. It looks great.
Yeah, I'm super happy with the design, and we're gonna continue developing this kind of type of content, not just here on the stream, but also so we get it out on the different social media and on our website for sure.
Yay, more work for me.
Well, this is in a way like kind of low effort work for us as a team because it's distributed. I know like Chris has done most of the work here, or well, Chris has done most of the work on this graphics, but most of the work is actually done by Andrew and Gig, who every day sits and document this stuff. And I just it's also something I want to do to make sure that they get more visualization of their work. So we're gonna make sure to mention them in every tweet that they are the source of this material because they work every day on it.
So
Yeah.
true.
I agree. And this is how OSINT should work, right? Like link the fucking sources.
Yeah, the sunken IFV. Yeah, that's true. I've seen that video. I don't remember when it was, but yeah, the Russians just drove an IFV straight into a small dam, I think, and it sunk immediately. Like it just And the funny thing is that particular IFV is supposed to be amphibious. It just
Yeah,
just straight under.
BMP 1 and 2 on paper are supposed to be amphibious. I have seen them be amphibious, but I guess maybe this one just didn't. I assume they drove it in assuming it would work, and it just didn't. I don't know.
No. I think they were confused. They were under fire and distress, and just drove off the road and down a small hill straight into the water. Well, normally they are not cleared to be amphibious because you're gonna kind of have to prepare them for that.
Yeah, right. You have to put like a snorkel on it and some other stuff.
Yeah, and skirts and stuff so that water doesn't flow over the front panels and into the hatches, because I think the driver basically has to have the hatches open when it's amphibious and stuff. So yeah, it's not something you just do during a battle. It's you need to prepare for that. So this wasn't it wasn't supposed to go over the pond or whatever it was, but yeah, it sunk.
I was hoping to ask Daniela this, but I don't know if he's going to be here today. But I believe Daniela mentioned a precipitous drop in Russian drone FPV activity or strikes that we can at least record. Do you know anything about that, Erlen? Did he mention that to you, or did you guys ever discuss that?
No, sorry.
Oh yeah, no worries.
Maybe he mentioned it. I can't think about it just on top of my head, but I don't think Daniela is coming on the
stream no worries. I just saw he showed us some updates of his graphs this week, and it showed that the Russian strikes have they haven't been posting them, or they aren't happening. I'm not sure which.
Oh yeah, I've seen those. But if you want, we can pull them up. But maybe you can do the Q&A first.
Sure. There's quite a few questions. Let's see. Okay, so Kellen Dunn asks, is there any chance that Germany, the Netherlands, or another EU country will send more Patriot systems to Ukraine? So as far as Germany, maybe Germinate, I'll let you answer that one. Go ahead.
I mean, the chance is there. There's always a chance. In my opinion, that likely will happen in the next weeks and months. Because I can only emphasize it again and again that Germany has provided more Patriot components as any other country in the world, right? We have delivered 2 of our 13 systems. We have delivered 1 additional radar and 2 additional launchers. So in fact, 3 systems are not fully functional in Germany out of our 13 we had. So we already provided a lot, but I can imagine, and I think I also talked about this once on Tochnyi like a couple of weeks or a month ago, that I actually hope that countries will put an initiative together, right? Where one country says, okay, I'm donating like 1 radar, another country is saying I'm donating 2 launchers, then another country is saying I'm donating 2 launchers. Everyone packs together like 10 missiles or 15 missiles or something, right? It's just a donation of a couple of millions per country, like 10, 20, 30 million per country. But in total, you would get a fully functional Patriot battery, which you can donate to Ukraine. This is something I would like to see. But as far as I can see it, only the US, Germany, and the Netherlands are willing to provide Patriot equipment to Ukraine, although some other countries like Spain are training on Patriot. And but they're not providing anything. So yeah, and since the US have massive budget problems for Ukraine, or aid problems for Ukraine, and the Netherlands is, let's face it, they have done so much for Ukraine in terms of Patriot stuff, but they are such a small country, so they don't have a lot of Patriot equipment. So they're very, very limited, and we are also limited in what we have. So yeah.
Bionade, my friend, are you in Kyiv or Lviv, man?
Hey, Joseph. I'm in Kyiv, just leaving the subway station, the metro station, basically.
Nice, man. How is it?
Oh, it's quite nice. The weather, we're like all day 25 degrees. Had a good night. No alert this night, so no alert this night. So I'm quite happy. Yeah.
You were in a shelter last night, is that correct?
The night before, from Saturday to Sunday, the night. In the morning, Sunday morning, I had to go to the shelter in Lviv because, like you may remember, Easter Sunday attacks on Ukraine. Even Ukraine is not celebrating Easter yet. Possibly the Russians also wanted to rile up the Western supporters that they obviously attack on this really holy day. Ukraine again with missiles and drones, with shiny drones all over the country. Right. It's quite dystopian when you see like families have to go down there early in the morning or in the middle of the night to the shelter, just because Russia is again having its temper tantrum, right?
Yeah, I think one person was killed in that strike on Kyiv. I could be mistaken about that, but it's one of the attacks on Kyiv have become a little less frequent, but still occur. And as you said 2 days ago, there was one. And it's unfortunate that people have to live through that, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, my concierge at the hotel told me it's right now around every third day is a missile attack on Kyiv. Not as many missiles as usually, but it's still an attack. And even it's just like 4 or 5, just like sounds like not much. It's not much in relation what's usually happening, but still it's dangerous, right? Even if they get intercepted debris or the intercepted missile falls down on a building, and that's really not good.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think we could get a video feed from you, Bionade, or is it not possible?
I can give you some video feed live from the streets of Kyiv. Yeah. It's a bit dark here. Sadly, maybe you can.
It's like Zelensky.
See the building. The building behind me was actually hit in a missile strike in December, end of December, in this big missile strike, and maybe I can turn the camera around. Is there a possibility? No,
I think if you go to sources, it's possible. It's in the settings
I'm on the
thing.
Okay, settings, video. Yes, it's possible. Here's a back camera. Right.
Wow, that's amazing.
So
thank you so much, Björn.
Sadly, you can see the building really, just like parts of it. But yeah, this building was like really hit. It's a big was a big office building, no military target, obviously, and yeah, it's got hit again. So yeah, it's a big mess. Yeah. But yeah, Kyiv at night, it's quite good weather. We still have like over 20 degrees, and yeah, I quite enjoy it here. It's almost like summer. See maybe some more buildings there, but like I said, it's really dark outside already.
Yeah, no, thanks for the view. I think it's really nice. I remember you mentioned you had a pretty easy go of it at the border. So I'm just curious, like, I know you had an easy go of it, but were there any observations at the border aside from that?
I mean, there were like long lines and long queues of trucks, obviously at the border, which doesn't mean there was a blockade, but yeah, it's just like trucks piling up at the border, which happens. But besides this, yeah, we got lucky. I was in a basically took a community ride, and since I had a European passport and everyone else was Ukrainian, we had the possibility to basically to take the European line, the EU line. So it was a little bit quicker. Yeah. But yeah, besides this, at a really good journey, was quite quick. Yeah.
Great to hear, my friend. Well, absolutely stay safe. Does anyone else on the panel have any questions for Björn? Or chat?
No questions from me. I just want to point out you have a lovely eyes, Björn.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yeah, I really had a nice dinner. Went to a nice Italian restaurant. Met a friend. Yeah, good. Thank you.
Stay safe, man.
It's yeah. I have to say, right? Like that's the thing when you have like for 2 or 3 days no air raid alert here, people really get relaxed and enjoy the life, right? You just live the day, and my friend earlier said it was for him unusual that there was no air raid alert this night, so he was quite happy he could also sleep through the night.
Björn, we have 2 questions from chat. Yeah. The first question: do you recommend people go to Kyiv?
Basically, if you have the possibility to visit Kyiv, do it. It's really a beautiful city. But yeah, it's still dangerous, right? The air raid alert, take them serious. Look for hotels with a shelter, and don't. Yeah. Also, you need to remember all of Ukraine still has curfew, which is starting at 12 p.m. right at midnight, and is going until like 5 p.m. in the morning. So yeah, these are things you need to remember. But if you feel so inclined and you say like, okay, I can live with the possibility I will be under air raid alert and maybe there will be missiles. Yeah, you can go here, right? No, nobody is holding you. Nobody's stopping you at the border or something, right? You just need your passport and then you can go. But yeah, always go to the shelter and stay safe. This is an important part.
Got it. And the second question is, which Björn flavor is the best?
It's a question I always get, and I have to say, I think it's the orange ginger one. Yeah, I always like to go with a ginger orange one.
Wonderful. I think that'll sail right over the Americans' heads, including mine, but hopefully it satisfied the Europeans. Great. Well, thanks so much, Björn. Anything else you want to add before we close out?
yeah, if you don't want to go to Kyiv, go to Lviv. Also, very beautiful city, and my personally greatest impression from Lviv is that people use the good weather on every bigger street corner in the inner city and in the old city of Lviv. There are street musicians, and it's not like the street musicians you see, like for example in Germany, where like just one person sitting there playing on his instrument and some people walking by. They're basically crowds around the street musicians, singing, dancing, and enjoying the evening. It's quite amazing. I really have to say. From this side, Ukraine has like a very, very, very good culture. It's a great flair, and yeah, you can really enjoy it.
Leonardo, can I ask you to talk us through Picture of the Week, which maybe this is a good opportunity for us to do a quick PSA. Anyone who has any video editing skills, I'm to blame for. It's in the other channel, Erland, in live space. I'm to blame for the fact that we don't have your Picture of the Week up at the moment. Just took quite a long time, but it's of the ancient walls of Lviv, and it's next to that Bernardine Church. Can you tell us why did you choose this picture?
It's the one with the flowers?
Yes, the one with the flowers.
Yes, yeah. So when I was a child in the place I lived, there was like a big, like a big square, right? Where in the spring, usually employees from the city would come and they would come and plant some flowers, and make it quite beautiful. And I haven't seen this in a long time, but in Lviv I saw this. How you can see on the picture. It's quite nice. Also, this big schlock you can see there. It's also made out of flowers, basically, and there's a big tree sap in this purple color. Beautiful. Really reminded me about my childhood, and it shows even when war is, the Ukrainian try to make it everywhere as nice as possible. Quite like that.
Thanks, Leonardo. Do you want to close out the show for us?
I mean, we have some more stuff to talk about, but
absolutely. Let's talk about more stuff. I'm always for talking about more stuff.
If you can hang around while you walk,
sure. I'm just like, I'm almost in my hotel, so I would just go to my room.
Sorry, Leonardo, I have a question for you. Just came to my mind. Like, how do you do it when you're not from Ukraine and you're on the streets of Kyiv or somewhere else in Ukraine, and then the air raid alert goes on? Like, how do you manage to get a shelter fast? Because do you prepare with different shelters around the city? Because the only one I would know is the shelter of my hotel, but when I'm like 20, 30, 40 minutes away from a hotel, like what do I do then as a foreign?
So I personally like to go to the subway stations, because these are like, they were designed as Cold War bunkers, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
So you're usually at least 60 meters underground, which would possibly survive even a bigger nuclear attack or something, right? So that's quite a good idea. But besides this,
I think there's an app.
Many
right?
buildings have a basement.
Is there an app that shows where the shelters are?
Oh yeah. Obviously, there are apps which show where public shelters are. Also, you can just look, especially in Kyiv, if you're like in the inner city or somewhere, if there are restaurants or buildings which are like in the basement, right? Many restaurants are just like you go down a flight of stairs and then you're like in a basement, one stairs underground. That's quite good. You should be safe there.
Thank you.
But yeah, obviously also there's an app that you can find shelters.
Okay, so Erlen, we got a few like versions of this question, so I'll just kind of like, we'll try to answer it as comprehensively as we can. So basically, Russia must have finite amounts of hardware. When will they degrade to the point where they're fighting with old hardware? And I see this question asked in like a few variations, just like when will Russia run out of equipment? When will they be forced to use old equipment? Things like this. So, I mean, obviously, I don't think I'm qualified to answer. I'm not sure any of us are truly qualified to answer this question. It's kind of a gigantic question. We certainly have people on the team that are looking at Russian war stockpiles or like their facilities where they store all this stuff. And I mean, we're definitely seeing these places get emptied out. Like, we're definitely on a path at some point for Russia to truly be running on shortages of equipment, for real. That said, I'm not sure what it'll look like exactly. I think for me, my experience with the missiles is a bit telling in terms of like what it'll probably look like, which is we probably won't see Russia just one day reach into its pockets and pull, and kind of like a cartoon, like pull the white, fabric out and like, like they won't have anything, right? It probably won't look like that. It'll probably look a lot more like they're going to slow things down, and much like they do with the missile strikes, they effectively ran out of missile stockpiles about like a few months ago. And what they do now is they like save up missiles for a couple months, which they did, and then they unleash them in big collective bursts like they did in the last couple days. And they, in this case, they targeted Ukraine's energy infrastructure. So we might see something akin to that. We probably won't ever see a situation where they're just out of equipment and they're not using any. We'll probably see a situation where they're just a little bit more careful and pick and choose a little more about what they actually choose to, like, when they choose to use it and how frequently. We'll probably see less frequent big attacks will probably be the result of it. But yeah, that's just my hot take. I'm certainly not qualified to say anything. Erlen, did you have anything you want to add about this?
Well, so yeah, I can add about a qualified speculative response, because you're totally right. There is no at least open source database which is good enough so that we can actually estimate well. Yeah, Bionada is distracting me with the armor there. That's amazing. But yeah, that can, so we can assess when they're gonna run out, right? And but yeah, for instance, we have Jay on our team who has been tracking a lot of these things, and I mean, it really comes down to the fact that we don't have enough people tracking it, and also that basically having a very good updated data on this would be incredibly expensive, because you would need to buy satellite images from these bases, and the most recent images, high quality images, are really expensive, especially on these bases. And I guess that's because those companies really want to profit from it. But yeah, I mean, we can just basically see that they are degrading, right? So what Jay is doing, and if you want to have some more information about this, I suggest you go follow Jay. He also highlights other people who look at the war stockpiles in Russia, and they basically count a bunch of different systems and identify them from satellite imagery. What they often see, but I don't think this tweet is the best one to show that. But often you see, here you can see that he counted, and basically enormous reduction, almost to half of this particular system from one storage unit in Omsk, which is a very large storage unit in, I would say, in the middle of Russia, very far east from Ukraine. This storage unit is enormous, and Jay has been tracking it for a while. He's counting all the systems and how they disappear. And what you can see is that often they take out off the barrels from the systems. They leave them with the hatches open, which is a sign that most of these systems might not even be operational. So yeah, it's just, if you're interested in that, you kind of just need to follow a bunch of different accounts that track these sort of things. But my estimated guess is that they probably have a year or something left with this, the systems that they're using now. But that's more like a guess. I'm basing upon the fact that we can see what they are sending to the front. And recently we've seen that they're sending less IFVs, less tanks, and often even starting to send some T-55s, using a lot more desert crossed golf carts in basic assaults, while before they would use APCs or IFVs. So based upon that, I just assume that that's because they have a low availability compared to what they would like. Yeah, but yeah, we would like to have more volunteers, doing the stuff that Jay is doing.
Yeah, it's a good point. Like, there are maybe 4 or 5 guys, including Jay, that are actually doing this. Maybe a few more than that, but it would be really cool if someone kind of coordinated all of it together and aggregated it into something more like meaningful, like Daniela has done with the drone strikes. But as everyone said, it's a lot of work. It requires a lot of taking a bunch of disparate OSINT people on the internet and aggregating the work together, and then also probably doing some of that work yourself to complete some incomplete stuff. And then, as Aaron was saying, you'd have to get some pretty high quality satellite footage to get good views of all these depots and what specific equipment has been taken out and things like that. And then on the production side, I guess it's just worth mentioning that, as far as I think the general consensus seems to be that Russia is serious about transitioning to a war economy. That is true. They aren't not taking that seriously. But it seems like we have yet to have actual evidence that a real substantial increase in production has happened when it comes to actual output of Russian military material. So that what I mean by that is, even though on paper the Russians should be able to produce a lot of artillery shells, they should, in theory, be able to produce quite a few tanks. To my knowledge, we haven't seen actual evidence of that happening. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Erlen, but that's it's maybe 30 tanks a month, something like that. They definitely have increased artillery production. I want to say they've maybe doubled it, but they would need to increase it by a magnitude of 10 to really produce a meaningful quantity compared to what they're pulling out of their storages right now. So all that to say, when they actually meaningfully run out of this equipment, it's going to be a big deal, because even though they're trying pretty hard, it doesn't look like their production is able to actually meet the demands of this war. So that's pretty significant. I think what Erland is saying is correct. I think I've seen this implied by several Western intelligence agencies as well, that Russia does still have fairly substantial stockpiles, and that they could, at a bare minimum, they can probably sustain another year of these losses by dipping into their stocks. That seems to be the general consensus. So yeah, any more on that, Erland, or we can go to the next question?
Well, yeah, and I just want to emphasize that it's so hard to know that it can also happen at any moment right now, that we see some sort of decline where they don't have enough parts or engines for some of these systems, because it's just too difficult to assess from satellite imagery if the things are operational or not. so it's really hard to really estimate when they're exactly going to run out. But I would just imagine that we're not going to see them run out of the actual vehicles. I'm pretty sure that it's going to be a parts problem that is going to hit them first, and then they're going to have a huge amount of stockpile left, which is unoperable because of unavailable parts or complete engines even.
Yeah, so I know it's a bit vague and a bit unsatisfying, but that's our general impression. As Erlen said, there's really not a clear picture that anyone can give you of this situation presently, and I don't quite know how it's going to look in the end in terms of like what the effect will be like when it happens. But I think we'll definitely see some kind of meaningful degradation of Russian forces based on our general understanding of like their material situation. So
yeah, the consumption hasn't been sustainable at all. Like they're consuming way too much equipment, vehicles, and also ammunition. If they had to dip into basically North Korean stuff that is really, really bad, that means that they cannot sustain the consumption of munition. And the same goes to sending basically golf carts or buggies into frontline assaults, which we've seen a lot of evidence that they've been doing. These are definitely not vehicles that are suitable for those kind of assaults. That means they have some sort of shortages already, and I mean, it's just too hard to give an exact date or month or even like but within 3 months. It's impossible to estimate right now when they're going to run out of, for instance, main battle tanks that are not T-55s. So it's pure speculation if you see someone, in my opinion, putting out specific months or anything like that. But it would be very useful to have more of this data and a more complete database where we could see what is actually left on the storages that we can see from satellite imagery, because I think that the mediatic message that we would send would be quite effective. So if someone is willing to put down a few hours every week in doing this stuff, I mean, contacting Jay is probably the best thing to do.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. Okay, next question is from Mitch Ashdown. Are any thoughts on the news of Russian fuel woes with the refinery hits? So as I mentioned, I cut a lot of stuff from the news this week. There were a lot of like little tiny stories. There was mention that Russia has increased its refined fuel imports from Belarus, which if you guys know anything about like the relationship between Belarus and Russia is just like kind of hilarious. Like Russia just is like kind of their fuel daddy. So the fact that they're taking refined fuel from Belarus is just like it signals a real desperation. So in general, I mean, it seems like Ukraine is being quite successful with these strikes. Successful enough that at the very least this week, Zelensky appears to have confirmed, maybe not the specifics that were publicly disclosed, but that there has been some kind of U.S. apprehension about it. So I think that speaks to its effectiveness, right? If anyone in the U.S. administration is going to anyone in Zelensky's administration and saying, "Hey, this is making us nervous," that seems to indicate that there's an effect happening at a bare minimum, right? So I would say personally, it seems very effective. I would even go so far as to say that there seems to be a fairly ambitious strategy by Ukraine to target Russian refinery capacity, military production, and political pressure points. And I think it seems to be led by Budanov. He gave a fairly extensive and candid interview this week about this. And he's kind of always implying that this seems to be a goal overall, is that at the ground level, defeating the Russian army doesn't seem to be as key to Budanov, at least, as defeating the Russian kind of war mentality, right? That they need to hit Russia where it hurts in their budget, in their economy, and demoralize their population so that they to solve this problem, right? That seems to be the reasoning. And so I think so far it's been incredibly effective. Like, considering Ukraine's strategic position, right, which is they don't have the capacity to make a bajillion rockets like Russia does and just strike at their leisure. It's much like the situation we see with the Black Sea Fleet, right? We've just accepted it as a reality that Ukraine has defeated the Russian Navy in detail. But, that's pretty astonishing. I think it's pretty much the same case here. Ukraine has developed a deep strike capability mid-war with a brand new technology and succeeded. And so far, they've taken out an estimated 10% of Russian oil refining capacity, or at least disrupted that much by requiring the facilities to stop and repair and put out fires and things like that. So, I would say personally, my assessment of it is like very, very effective. It's one of the most effective things Ukraine has done, although its direct military effect is probably fairly limited. I shouldn't say limited. I mean, that's where the jet fuel is refined. But like, I think the real goal here is a more political goal in terms of like stopping the Russian war machine and the war motivation. Erland, anything you want to add about this? I don't know. I keep going to you, but I don't know who to direct more general stuff like this to. Besides, you've had at least a little military experience. So anyway, go ahead.
Well, I would assume that it doesn't only affect the total availability of the fuel they need, but the fuel needs to be in the right place as well. So if they hit refineries and storages that are in one part of Russia, it's going to degrade the logistics chain as well. So that's probably why you saw the reports of them taking fuel from Belarus. I don't think it's because they overall don't have enough. It's more where it's coming from, right? So that's also an effect that shouldn't be discounted. That's the only commentary I can give, other than the fact that we had Lorem Ipsum, who did a fantastic segment on this. Was it last week? Or a couple of weeks ago? Yeah. So I would refer to that stream or to the video, dedicated video on our channel, if someone is more interested in that topic.
Yeah, it's a good point. And I guess like the last thing I'll say about it is that domestic fuel prices in Russia have increased quite a bit. I want to say about 10%. So definitely having an effect. As Erland said, I think it's the localized effects are going to be kind of significant. And yeah, you're absolutely right that it makes sense why they would be particularly interested in Belarusian fuel because of its primo location, as it were. Okay, next question. Let's see. What are the details of the security guarantees that other nations have signed with Ukraine? So there have been a number of these bilateral guarantees that have been made with Ukraine and European allies. So I know the UK was the first major country to sign one. Since then, I know France has signed one. I believe Germany has signed one. Is that correct, Jermaine?
We were the second before France.
Sorry.
Yeah. Do you want me to go to the through the list?
Yeah,
of
if you could go through the specifics of the German one, because I was going to say a lot of them we don't have a lot of specifics. So I think the Germans tend to be the most public about things. So if we know anything, I think the German one is a good model of understanding the others. So go ahead.
Yeah, so I looked through the German one and through the British one. Thanks, Jonathan, who's also here in the stream, who sent me a link from the British one. And yeah, it's not a competition. It's just yeah. So I made a tweet back then and basically listed 22 points. Maybe not going through all 22. But Germany is going to provide long-term military support to the Ukrainian security and defense forces and fully restore Ukraine's territorial integrity with its internationally recognized borders, so including Crimea. Germany will promote joint procurement and other forms of armament cooperation with European and international partners to strengthen the Ukrainian security and defense forces. Germany will, when necessary, expand its support, reducing existing barriers for cooperation, encouraging the defense industry to invest, including by evaluating options for supporting the localization of production in Ukraine, joint production, mitigate existing supply chain bottlenecks, to identify potential areas for further cooperations, and further explore localization, repair, and maintenance in Ukraine. We'll work together to secure IT infrastructure from cyber attacks, promotion of small and medium-sized enterprises in Ukraine. Germany will provide assistance for Ukraine to harmonize in regulation with EU standards. Special focus on green energy transition. This is, I believe, the green energy transition, when I remember correctly, was a specific one in the German contract, or in the German agreement.
Sounds very German.
Yeah, I mean, when you have to rebuild stuff, you can make it green, like in the first try, right? It's
But it sounds to me like what my experience reading about, when I'm doing the news report, I was reading about these. And real quick, I just wanted to list the countries involved because, you can be mad about Germany not being second, but I failed to mention several countries at all. So
it's fine. It's fine. It's
so Italy also signed one recently. That's the most recent one. Denmark also signed one. If I'm not mistaken, the Netherlands is currently working on one with Ukraine. I could be mistaken about that. But so several countries have signed these. My point, though, listening to your specifics is it's still pretty vague. Like I would expect the Germans to be the most public and the most specific about what the treaty says. To me, that still was fairly vague. And it seems to me to be just like a formalization of the informal stuff they've been doing for the last 2 years. Would you disagree? Is there anything in there that you would say is really concrete that makes this treaty or this security agreement significant?
Not very specific. What I've noticed when I went through the British one and the German one is that the wording might be different in a couple of things, but the outcome is very similar of each individual point, besides the green transition. I believe there was a very specific German one. What I see the important difference, or a very interesting difference, is, and I also talked about this on Twitter, is the German agreement. Both agreements, the British and the German one, goes for 10 years. Yeah, it's a 10-year agreement / contract, whatever you want to call it. The German one can be extended over the next 10 years. It specifically mentioned that Germany and Ukraine can jointly decide to extend the agreement within the next 9.5 years, while the UK agreement states that the agreement may be amended and supplemented, but not extended. So, of course, the amendment could be an extension of the agreement, but it's not specifically mentioned. And another difference I saw is that the UK specifically mentions Ukraine becoming a member of NATO, and that it's very, very needed. And as far as I remember, Germany didn't even mention the NATO membership of Ukraine in the agreement. Might be wrong on that, but I think if I recall correctly, Germany didn't even mention the NATO membership. So this is some specific differences between the both agreements. So if I would speculate, and I just want to highlight, it's a speculation, it's nothing confirmed. When I want to speculate is that the British one is like, okay, Ukraine is going to be a member of NATO in the next 10 years, so we don't need to talk about specific extensions of the agreement, right? Because then they are under protection of NATO. While the Germans are not so sure if it will happen, and that's why they have included an extension of the bilateral security agreement. Because why do you need an extension of the bilateral security agreement when Ukraine is part of NATO, right? They are protected by NATO. It's not like they need Germany to protect them. They have NATO. So yeah, that's just my take, and it's just purely speculation. Just want to highlight that.
Yeah, and I think as far as I could tell, like, you know, when we hear bilateral security agreement, I think we think of something much more like specific. Like, I don't know, if Russia does something, then like UK will put troops on the ground or something like that, right? That's like when I think of it, that's what popped into my head initially. But I think I just want to stress, like, there's no real specific commitments here. Like, it's well, I shouldn't say no specific commitments, but it's fairly general in terms of what it's what these bilateral agreements are promising. For example, help Ukraine with its IT infrastructure. Like, you know, that's good. But so I just want to stress, like, it seems to be more of like a formalization of the informal framework that has been building up for the last 2 years, and it should facilitate government actions, right? By having this written into law in these various governments, you're going to see like departments come up that can facilitate these things. In other words, it forms the foundation of something rather than in and of itself being a like important piece of paper that will guarantee Ukraine something specific. I don't know if you agree with that. Go ahead.
I absolutely agree, but there are 2 points which lead to this. What you're talking about? It's not something very specific, like we're putting 5,000 troops and 2,000 tanks on the border. It's not like this, and I don't think that anyone would make that public if these plans exist. But there are 2 points in the German one, and the first one is in the event of a future Russian armed attack against Ukraine. So if this now ends and Russia decides to give it a second try in like 8 years or something, in event of this, at the request of either the participants, so either Germany or Ukraine, the participants, so Germany or Ukraine, will condole within 24 hours to determine appropriate next steps. And the second point is Germany affirms that in those circumstances, so a further Russian armed attack or a second one, it would provide Ukraine with swift and sustained security assistance, modern military equipment across all domains, and economic assistance, and also seek an agreement in the EU to impose economic and other costs on Russia. So these are 2 points which I think are somehow related to what you're talking about.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. So that is a very specific provision. So thanks for pointing that out. I hopefully the other treaties have a similar provision in it. I assume they do.
I believe so.
Yeah. Cool. Let's see if any more questions you see, Erland.
Nah, but I think we should just go to the small update and explanation of Daniel's data because.
Sure, yeah.
Binod has been waiting in the lobby with this, to be the closing out guy. So I don't know. I don't want to keep him there if there is nothing more super important.
Oh, it's all fine. I'm just quickly in the supermarket. Don't worry.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. Let me pull this up here. If I can. Yeah. So, Daniel couldn't make it, so I'm gonna do a short presentation and also kind of give him shout outs for doing this because he's been doing it consistently for quite a few months now.
Real quick, Erland. You and the gang, as I call them, the Italians, the Tochnyi Italians. You guys did a space recently on Twitter, an Italian language space. So I'm just curious, like how that went, and then you can proceed. Sorry.
Yeah, we did an Italian language space, and it was actually quite successful. We had quite a lot of speakers. We had Giovanni Martinelli, which is a defense analyst, and also Monique Camarra, which is a very prominent researcher on intelligence and dis and misinformation. So, we had lots of guests, and it was really good. Daniele and Pierre were the hosts, and I was kind of co-host with them as well, but it was good. And also we did a little presentation of his data, and I think we're going to try and do those hopefully once a month or something like that again. So interestingly, there's been quite some drastic development actually the last month, and the most kind of significant thing has been revealed at the infantry strikes. Someone is hot micing. I'm not sure who it is, but
might be me. Sorry.
Well, keep eating your
I muted.
Snickers.
Yes, I'm eating a Kinder Bueno. Sorry.
Yeah. So you can see an insane increase of Ukrainian use of FPVs on infantry. So I just wanted to mention again that this is observed use of drones. So that's all the videos being published on the different Telegram channels or other social media that the Ukrainians and the Russians are publishing these strikes. And Andrew and Gik has geolocated most of them, but those that they can't geolocate, they at least document and break down. So that's where we get the data from. And Daniela has been writing a code that is extrapolating the data into the different categories. So yeah, quite interesting to see that the last 2 months also the Russians have decreased the amount of FPV drone strikes against infantry. Ukraine keeps a steady lead and has actually been consistently increasing the strikes on vehicles, while Russia the last month actually decreased. Okay, I think I'm going to take that to the end. So here we have a breakdown on the vehicle strikes. These are only the Ukrainian strikes. So the Ukrainians are striking basically in 3 categories: cars, loaves, and trucks. This is just logistics. I think Daniela made this kind of to see how big the usage of loaves were.
Just real quick, a loaf in the Russian military, there's something called a bukhanka, which like means loaf, and it's like a little logistics van. It's like a ubiquitous kind of Soviet style vehicle. It's like the Scooby-Doo van is like how I look at it. I'm sure you guys have seen one, so I just wanted to point that out to anyone who might be confused by this loaf term.
There, that's a loaf.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So yeah, the Russians have been using them for anything. I mean, you can even find there's even like a tracked version. I've seen them with mortars as well. So basically converted to a mobile small mortar station. Anyways, I think so. This I wanted to explain, and we were sitting, me, Daniele, and Pierre, looking at the data. And since Pierre is basically a statistician, I asked him if he could just take a look at the data and see if he found some inconsistencies. And he did, which meant that Daniele rather, he went down into the code and looked for errors because there was something not completely right with the numbers not adding up. So Daniele found an error, and that error actually favored the Russian numbers in just this particular graph. So it didn't affect the other graphs, and it disfavored the Ukrainians in the same amount. So when he corrected that, you see the results. And yeah, we were waiting for an exponential growth in FPV drone usage from the Ukrainians because we knew that they had established mass production of FPV drones sponsored by various state initiatives and even by...
Check out our 2 interviews with Wild Hornets. Sorry, go ahead, Erlen.
Yeah, yeah, and also that many of the volunteer groups have been, basically scaling their production as well. So we knew that this was happening, and we've known since December that was going to happen, but we didn't see the results of it yet. But in March was definitely the month where that kicked in, and you see that Ukraine has a massive lead in documented use of FPV drones. And then the typical criticism to this data, and I totally accept that people question it, is that while you don't know exactly how much they use, which is true because this is only the documented use. So there's been some Russian guys and saying like, "Hey, look at this Lost Armor site. He has documented way more strikes by Russia." Well, the thing is that data was also including Lancet drones and some other things. And if we checked that towards Andrew's data, and we found that it was almost identical to what Andrew has been publishing. Another thing which has been pointed out by people is that, yeah, but maybe they're not uploading everything. Yeah, that's true. And I think both the Ukrainians and the Russians, to some extent, do not upload things, especially if they want to keep something out of the loop. But what we really see is that the Russians are uploading almost everything they do, and for propaganda purposes, and Ukraine as well, not necessarily for propaganda only, but also for fundraising. So, I mean, I don't think that the Russians suddenly decided not to upload a lot of videos in March. Maybe, but I don't understand why they would suddenly change their behavior. And another thing that has been kind of validating the data is that it's been very consistent since Andrew and Geek started collecting it. So we haven't seen like dramatic changes in the total usage. So that's why we believe that it's kind of a quite good indicator of the total usage. If we knew exactly how much of the videos were not published, then we could give a good estimation of the total use. But that's probably a number that will be concealed for quite a long time.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that people get really confused about with this data is, again, very specifically FPV drone usage, right? And so what are FPVs not, right? That's very important. FPVs are not the little quadcopter drones that are dropping the grenades, right? As far as I understand, and they're not the Lancet drones. What other examples of like things that this data doesn't cover, Erlen, as far as drone strikes?
Well, yeah, it doesn't cover those classical videos of where you see like only a footage of straight down and a grenade falling. That it doesn't include that. It only includes FPV drones, which are first-person view drones. Most of them are one-way munitions, but there are some very few videos of FPV drones dropping ammunition and then flying back home. Those are included.
Yeah, you wear like a VR headset. That's like what really distinguishes a FPV. Yeah.
Yeah, it basically points the camera straight forward, and that's what you see in the video.
Right. So yeah, I just want to make sure people understand that like this is a very specific type of drone. It's not indicative of every possible drone. And so I guess just one other thing I would point out in terms of like a potential reason that the Russian numbers might be down is maybe they're using other types of drones. That is possible, right? That they've decreased their reliance on FPV drones and increased their reliance on other types. But yeah, just that is one. I want to stress that like this isn't something that we haven't acknowledged in the data. The data is very explicitly just FPV strikes. Yeah.
Yeah, and also that we knew about a problem in logistics with availability of video transmitters that were back in January, February, and it was also, to some extent related to Chinese New Year, and both Ukraine and Russia has been almost completely reliant on Chinese hardware for their drones. Ukraine has been transitioning more and more away from that and having a lot more of the components being made in Ukraine or in Europe, and they aim to have 100% of the components available in Ukraine or Europe. While the Russians have been ordering a bunch of drones basically pre-manufactured in China, I can imagine that they might have run into a logistical issue where Ukraine somehow managed to avoid being impacted too heavily from it. That's just a kind of a well-informed guess, so don't take my complete word for that.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. And I mean, we've seen this in other areas of Russian production. They just don't, they seem to be taking every shortcut possible to get the most production. They just squeeze every possible bit of production they can out of what they have. But when it comes to like meaningfully scaling up production reliably, it seems to just be a big money pit for them because they put so much money into their drone program. It scared us. I mean, last year we were like, we're seeing Russia drop, I want to say $8 billion or something on drones, and making sure that they had more drones than Ukraine. And we didn't see the same level of like government initiative from Ukraine. We saw like, as you were mentioning, volunteer efforts and certain state efforts, but it was like a much less well-funded initiative. But even with that situation, I think we've seen that Russia doesn't seem able to. I'll just put it this way. We certainly haven't seen a situation where they have as many drones as we were afraid they would by now, right? I'm not suggesting that this data is 100% reliable and that we can definitely say there's been this precipitous drop in drone activity. But at the very least, we're certainly not sitting here saying, oh my God, Russia has as many drones as we were afraid of, right? So that seems to speak to me to, as you said, there probably are specific supply shortage issues, but in general, there seems to be a difficulty that Russia has in scaling up production on these like critical like military components, probably due to sanctions, due to a little bit their political structure and their like I don't know, just lack of ability to I don't know quite how to express it, but it's a product of their system. I think it's just a very corrupt system that doesn't. You can put money in and sometimes you don't get results out, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah, I can imagine that there's a lot of corruption and bad management is going on, but you don't want to underestimate them. They really have been lethal for the Ukrainians. The Russians have been killing a lot of Ukrainians with FPV drones, and it's been really, really bad. I also have like a semi prediction. I think that we're probably soon gonna see a stall out of the increased usage of FPV drones, and it's also because Ukraine has kind of signaled, or some groups have signaled, that they're gonna start making more drones that can drop ammunition precisely. They're not going to stop using FPV drones at all, but they're probably within the next few months they're going to reach an incredibly high number of produced FPV drones per month, and I can imagine that after the summer we're not going to see like a huge increase in usage. Also because you need the operators to use them, and you also need the ammunition, and it's really, really problematic to arm these drones if you're not well trained and experienced with explosives.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, anything else you want to close out with, Erlen? Otherwise, we can finish up.
I think I'm done. I can say that just like shout out to Daniele for continuing, doing this work. I know he's working on a lot of other content as well. Like he is working on 2 different articles for the website. I basically told him like you need to wait coupling me into those because I don't have time now, but I'm interested to see what he's working on. And also shout out to Wild Hornets for giving us a fantastic interview a couple of weeks ago. If you're interested in FPV drones or drone warfare at all, then please go and check that interview out.
And I guess I want to give a shout out to Colby, who is, of course, an associate at Tochnyi, who also contributes to The Insider And a shout out to Michael Weiss, who also was part of revealing the story about the Havana syndrome that I mentioned earlier in the news. And he was one of the very early guests of Tochnyi. So he believed in us very early on. Thanks to him for being a guest. And it's great to see The Insider, which we saw our buddy Colby contributing to, put out such a fantastic, groundbreaking story. Really, really good stuff to see. Eh?
And another shout out to whoever doesn't know Andrew Perpetua at this point should check out his map and his YouTube stream. Andrew Perpetua is, just search it up on YouTube. It's a lot of good content about the war in Ukraine.
Yes, Michael Weiss was a guest. It's an old podcast somewhere back in the ether. Maybe I'll find it and link it somewhere. But it's a great interview, by the way. I would say it's a bit dated, like a lot of our content, just because it's so timely, because we're talking about a war. But it was, I remember it was like looking back on the first year of the war at the beginning of the 1 year anniversary ish. He was a great guest. Hopefully we'll get him back sometime, but I'm sure he's a busy bee right now. He's been exposing Russian agents all over Europe and the United States. So hats off to his work, and definitely looking forward to it.
I'm going to answer Marino's question, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so we got a question which I think is quite good, or a very good question from Marino. How effective and scalable are FPV drones when every drone needs an operator? Well, yes, it's true that every drone needs an operator all the way to basically to its target, but that's also the case for other drones. The problem isn't necessarily only the pilot, because you can train pilot quite effectively. And I know Ukraine is training a lot of drone pilots, like thousands of them. I think the larger problem is probably munitions that are easy to arm and safe to arm without having a lot of experience with explosives. And we also know that Ukraine is working hard here to make custom munitions for FPV drones and other drones. And they are a lot more effective than the ones they've been using up until now, and we've seen the effects already. But yeah, there is a limit to where how much FPV drones Ukraine can use. There definitely is, and that's also why they are working more on more autonomous FPV drones. So not completely AI, in my opinion, but it uses some machine learning and automatization to basically guide it to the terminal stages of the target. So those drones have already been successfully tested. They're quite expensive right now, but as like anything else, when you scale production, you can probably get the price down quite a lot. And if you get those drones out in big numbers, then it will be a lot easier to launch and strike targets.
And one very last thing before I turn it over to Bionade to end this thing. I just want to mention that our friend CJ, he's a colleague of ours. He's been a contributor on Tochnyi in the past. He's a bit busy these days, but he is currently campaigning for like military army influencer of the year. I don't know, Erland, you know more about this than me. I just want to do like a quick vote for CJ plug. Erland, can we do that?
Yeah,
I can do this.
Yeah, come on, Bionade, you can do it.
Yeah, it's the Army Leaders Exchange, right? Program or site, and they're basically having a contest for the creators who gets the most votes. We can see our dear friend CJ already made it into the quarterfinals, right?
Semifinals.
No, the half final. Semifinals. Yes. Wow, my God. He will need support.
He's up against that wholesome aircraft carrier commander that everyone saw on the news.
Not yet.
thank God.
If he goes to the final, then they will possibly be against each other shoulder. But it's a quite interesting contest. It's a KO system, right? And CJ made it into the semi-finals. So we want to have him in the top 3. So everyone, please help out CJ. We will share it everywhere when the next round is started.
And it's on Instagram, Twitter, any other social media platforms?
I think Facebook was actually the third platform. But the platforms with the biggest influence is obviously Twitter and Instagram.
Yeah, all we can really say is like CJ definitely contributes to Tochnyi. He just is a bit busy with what's going on. And he's an Army Ranger, so he's doing some stuff right now. We appreciate all of his contributions to Tochnyi, and we just wanted to encourage people to take a look at his Twitter account and his work to reach out and explain the wonders of artillery to the good people of the internet, and maybe consider tossing a vote his way. So with that, Mr. Bianati, I'll turn it over to you to close us out, buddy.
Okay, two more. One more thing. Maybe you have seen it a couple of minutes ago. Maybe you remember the meme. They have McDonald's in Ukraine. They have McDonald's in Kyiv. Yeah, obviously they have McDonald's in Kyiv. I walked by the McDonald's next to me. So yeah, there's McDonald's in Kyiv. But besides this, live from Kyiv, I thank you for listening to the stream. Wish you a very wonderful night. I hope it will be a silent night, not just for me, but for everyone in Ukraine. And with this, Slava Ukraini.
Heroium Slava.
Slava Nazi.
Smed Varoham.
Smert Voraham.
Putin Quilo.
Putin Kova. Super.